Welcome to the Satin Ice Halloween class. My name is Sarah. I want to thank you guys all for joining today. Let me know where you guys are tuning in from. And let me know if you guys are new to using the Satin Ice products, if you've used Fondant before. I'll go through all of the supplies and products that we are going to use today. So we can go to the overhead camera. Okay, so today's class is going to be spider web cupcakes that use the Satin Ice buttercream, the glitter glaze, and black fondant. So what I have is cornstarch. This is going to help us so that the fondant doesn't stick to our surface or get too sticky on your hands. I also have water. This is going to be used for making the buttercream as well as helping stick the fondant to itself. I have a plastic bag. This is important because when you're working with fondant, once it's exposed to air, it's going to start drying out. So it's important to place it back into a closed container, whether that's a Tupperware, or if you don't have that, a plastic bag works good too. You just want to make sure that it's really sealed tight so that it's not exposed to air. I also have a piping bag, and we will see. You might not have to use this. You can use this if you want, but we'll get to that when it's time to work with the buttercream. I also have some cupcakes here. I also have cookies to show you guys how we can do the same technique on cookies as well. I have a tablespoon, a paintbrush to brush the water on the fondant for when we have to stick the pieces together. I have a toothpick. I'm going to use the toothpick for two reasons. One reason is to help for our structure for our spider that we're going to be making with the fondant. It's not necessary, but it will help if you want it to, if you want the head to sit up a certain way. So for that, and then we're also going to use that for our technique for our spider web. I also have scissors. This is to help cut open our fondant and to cut a hole in our piping bag. I have a spatula and an offset or angled spatula. This can be used to spread our buttercream. And then this spatula is going to be used to scrape the bowl and to get our buttercream out of the bowl. So I also have butter for our buttercream, and I have the Satin Ice Buttercream Icing Mix. This is one of my very favorite products by Satin Ice. It's really amazing. All you have to do is add butter and water to this mix, and it's ready in minutes. It's actually like a dough-like consistency, which is amazing so that you're not dealing with the powdered sugar that would normally fly everywhere when you're making homemade buttercream. So I'll just show you really quick what it's like. It's almost kind of like a shortening consistency. So it mixes up really nice, and this stuff tastes delicious. Right when you open up the pail, you smell, it's such a delicious smell. It already has a vanilla flavor to it, so you don't even have to add extra flavor, but you can. You can make all different kinds of recipes with this, like peanut butter, chocolate. You could do cream cheese. In my class for November, we're going to be making pumpkin spice buttercream out of this. So if you haven't signed up for that class, I definitely would, because that's going to be really delicious. So this is the buttercream icing mix. We could talk more about that when we start making it, and if you guys have any questions on that. And then we are also going to be using one of Satin Ice's new products, the glitter glaze. So this is going to be used for the actual spider web, and this stuff is awesome. It has a vanilla flavor. You can use it to drizzle onto cupcakes. You can do it to like pipe letters on top of a cake if you wanted to. It's really good for like slime themed cakes. You can dip donuts into it. This is really versatile and a lot of fun to use. And today we're going to be using black for the spider webs. And it's a nice, like, it's almost like a translucent coverage, but with the black, it's more opaque because of that dark color, and it has a really nice glittery finish. And then we are also going to be using the Satin Ice black fondant for the spider. And then I also have a mixer and the paddle attachment to make the buttercream. If you don't have a stand mixer, you can always use just a regular mixing bowl and a handheld electric mixer with the beater attachments as well. And then I also have parchment paper here, and that's to place our spider on top so we can let it dry before putting it onto our cupcakes. So I think we're going to start with the spider first because we want that to dry before being able to pick it up and place it onto our cupcake. So I'm just going to make room for that. So for the spider, you're going to want to have your parchment paper, your black fondant, potentially a toothpick. We'll see if we have to end up using that, and some cornstarch. And then I also have the silicone mat underneath me as well. And this is to help also so that the fondant won't stick to the surface. It's a really nice surface to work on. I'm also going to have my scissors and my Ziploc bag. And I'll place cupcakes to the side. Okay, so has anyone worked with fondant before, or is everyone new with fondant? If you're new, I don't want you to be scared because this product is a lot of fun to work with. It might seem scary because of what you see on TV and what these amazing artists create with it, but really it's just kind of like an edible Play-Doh that you can mold and shape and have a lot of fun with. So we're going to be using a small amount of fondant today. We're not going to be creating a huge spider. We're going to create a spider that's small enough to fit on top of a cupcake or on top of a cookie. And then if you wanted to do this design on top of a cake, you can scale up the spider to be a bigger size. So fondant outside of the package is kind of on like the firmer side. Like I said, it's kind of a similar consistency to a Play-Doh. But as you take a piece out and you start to knead it, the warmth of your hands is going to start to help it activate the gums, and that's what's going to make it be nice, soft, and pliable. So what I'm just going to start to do is just, since I'm using a small piece, I'm just squishing it in between my hands, and I'm just kneading it to get it softer. If I was using a large amount of fondant, I would place it on my surface and I would use the palm of my hand to press down, then fold it over, press down, and just keep repeating that process until your fondant is soft and pliable and has a little bit of a stretch to it. And at this point, if you have warmer hands or if you're in a warmer environment, you can take your cornstarch out and you can dust your surface a little bit. You can put some on your hands if you need to. It's important not to use too much cornstarch. I hardly used any. I'm just doing a light coating on the surface, just enough to help with the stickiness. You don't want to use too much because then you'll actually work that cornstarch into your fondant and that can dry it out. So it's important really to use the most minimal amount. I think I saw a couple questions come through. I'm not sure what they are though. Okay, so I'm still just kneading my fondant. And now it's starting to get nice and soft. And we're going to be ready to work with it. So for the spider, it's going to be very simple. We're going to create the head, the body, and the legs. So first, I think that we should start with the legs because we're going to lay those down flat and then we're going to be able to attach the body and the head on top of the legs. So for the legs, what we're going to do is we're going to create 8 small balls of the fondant. And I'm just going to eyeball the size, but I just want to make sure that they're all pretty even in size. So mine are probably about the size of a pea, maybe a little larger. So we're just going to create 8 of those. Okay. So once you have your 8 little balls of fondant, we're then going to create little logs for the legs. So what you'll do is you're going to take your pointer finger And you're just gonna lightly roll over the piece of fondant back and forth lightly so that you don't end up crushing it or smashing it down. So you're just gonna lightly roll back and forth until you create a log shape, and that's gonna be the legs. And then what we could do is you can either leave them straight or you can give them a little bend. So it looks like this. And we're gonna repeat that process for the rest of them. You can make them different sizes. You can get creative with it. They don't all have to be perfect. So I'm just lightly rolling my pointer finger over the top of the fondant back and forth until I get a little log. And I'm just going to line up these legs. I'm going to do 4 on each side. So then once you have a log, you're going to just slightly bend it. Okay. So now I'm going to just lift this up so you guys can see closer. This is what the legs should look like. I am going to end up having them touch, so I'm just kind of putting them next to each other for now. My bottom one is kind of longer. I have them kind of staggered, but you can do them whichever way you like. Just remember that we want this to fit on top of our cupcake or our cookie or whichever surface you plan on putting this on. So I'm just going to continue to do that with the other pieces of fondant. And I like to place my pieces on top of parchment just because I feel like it's a surface that allows the fondant to dry. Sometimes when I leave it onto the silicone mat, it takes a longer time to dry and it might stick to it. So I'd rather have it on a non-stick parchment paper surface. So now for these, we're going to have the bend happen on the left side of the leg rather than the right. And if you need to, since we're working with smaller pieces of fondant, if you need to get it started to create a log, you can put it on top of your fingers and just kind of lightly roll back and forth. Again, we're just going to place them next to each other. Oh, and then I want to make sure that you guys, I forgot to put mine in my plastic bag, but make sure your fondant that you have open is either in a pail that's shut, like a Tupperware, which is the best bet. And you can also wrap it in a plastic bag before you put it back into a closed container. That's going to really make sure that it stays fresh and so you can reuse it again. You should also do the same with any extra that you have on the side, but we're going to be using this pretty soon. So I just have it here. So I'm just going to continue making my legs, rolling back and forth lightly with my pointer finger until I get a log shape. And I'm just slightly giving them a little bend to give them some shape. You can leave them straight if you want. It's up to you. Okay, so now I have all of my spider legs. Carefully pick this up to show. So I have 4 on each side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly attach all of these on one end, just so they're together before. And then we're going to kind of push them closer, both sides closer together. And then we'll be able to place the body on top of that and then the head. So I'm going to show you the way without the toothpick and then a way that you can do it with the toothpick to give it more structure if need be. So now I'm just going to dip my paintbrush into my water. And when you're using the water to attach the fondant, you really don't need a lot. A little bit goes a long way. The water is going to make the fondant sticky because water and sugar just forms, the water makes the fondant have a nice adhesive. But when I do this, I'm going to dip the paintbrush into the water and I'm just going to dab it onto a paper towel just to make sure I get any excess water that I don't need. And I'm just going to lightly dab some water on the ends of the spider legs, a little bit on the sides, and then I'm just going to be able to lightly pinch these together just on one end, just to attach them. And I'll pick this up so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So now they're touching on one end. The other thing I want to mention when working with fondant, I know I'm doing it because I'm trying to show you guys up close, but when you're working on a specific shape, like if it's something flat, once it's out in the air right now, our pieces are actually already starting to dry. So you want to try not to manipulate it or move it as much as you can while it's already in this drying process, because then that's when you could start to see some cracks happen. So you just want to brush a small amount of water on one ends of your spider legs, and we're just going to pinch them together. So do this for both sides. Bring this up close. So now each side, the spider legs are together at one end. So what we did was we just pinched it together. And we used a little bit of water to make sure that they hold together. And then the next thing, we're going to want to we want these two sides of the legs to be touching in the middle, because that's where we're going to place our body on top of that. So again, I'm just going to take a little bit of water. So what I do is I put my paintbrush in my water and I dab the excess off on my paper towel. And I'm just going to brush a tiny bit onto the ends of these legs where they are pinched together. And then I'm just going to have the two ends meet. So it should look like this. Just let me know if there's any questions coming through. And next we'll get to the body and the head of the spider. So since this fondant has just been sitting here for a little bit, I'm just going to start to knead it since it's been exposed to air. Like I said, I really like to keep it covered at all times, but we are going to be working with it, so I just left it out. So we're going to take two pieces of fondant, one that's a little bigger and one that's a little smaller. The body is going to be the bigger piece. And I might end up changing the sizes of these. We're just going to eyeball it. We're going to go based off the size of the legs of your spider and the size of the surface that you're going to be putting these on. So this is my size of my cupcake, and we are going to have a spider web on top of it. So I'm just trying to make sure that my spider is a good size. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to put my excess in this bag. With the bigger piece of fondant, you're going to form a ball. Once you have that, then you're just going to lightly roll it back and forth, not to create a log shape, but to create more of like an oval shape. And then you can kind of like hover it over your legs to see if the size is making sense for proportion. So I'm just going to create like an egg shape kind of right now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just slightly press down with my pointer finger just to make it a little wider. So it's going to be like a thick oval. Okay. So this is what mine looks like. And so now we're going to be able to attach that. So I'll take my water, dab it out a little bit, and I'll just brush some on the bottom of this shape. And then we're going to place that to be right on top where the legs meet in the middle. Okay, so then next for the head, we're going to do kind of the same technique. So we're going to roll this into a ball. And then we're just going to slightly flatten it the tiniest amount to make it like kind of like a thick circle. So it looks like this. And then we're going to take our water a little bit on one end of the circle, and we're going to attach that to the body. And you'll notice that since gravity is doing its job, the head doesn't want to stay up, and this is more of a flat spider, which is totally fine. And then I'll show you how you can have the head stand up a little bit more if we use a toothpick. So that's spider number one. The next one I might actually make a little bit tinier. So since I'm going to make it a little tinier, the balls that I'm going to form for my legs are going to be smaller than the last round. And we're just going to make them all somewhere around the same size. I'm just going to form 4. I'm going to actually form 8 smaller balls of the black fondant. And then we will do the same technique as we did before, and we'll roll them out to skinny logs for the legs. Again, you can use this you can make these whatever size you need, according to what you're placing the spider on. So if you're making a cake and you want to place these spiders all over your cake, you can do a bunch of small ones, or you could do one large one to place on top of the cake. So while I form those into legs, I'm putting my piece of fondant back into this bag just so it's not exposed to air. And we're just going to roll lightly back and forth with our pointer finger to create the legs. Careful not to press down too hard. You don't want to flatten them. So we'll have 4 on each side. Okay. And you can have some that are longer than others, some that are shorter. And then I'm just going to give them a slight little bend like we did with the others. So the ones on the right side will have the bend toward the left side of the leg. So we're just going to curve them a little bit. And then we're going to have these legs attach. So we're just going to pinch them. You might be able to just do this without any water. I'll pick these up so you could see. So these are a lot smaller than the other spider. This is like a baby. So we'll let those sit there. Okay, then we'll do the same with the other legs. So this spider is actually smaller, so I might not even be able to use the toothpick. So I could show you guys how you can use the toothpick with this other one, since it's bigger. Let me just finish these legs and then I'll show you how you could use the toothpick if you wanted to. The toothpick is also probably a good idea if you are making even a bigger spider. Okay, so all those legs are done. I'm just going to pinch them on one end so that they stick together. Okay, so for the toothpick for this other spider, if you want the head to be more propped up, what you can do is, this is a big toothpick for this size spider, so I'm just going to break it in half. And what we'll do is, I'm going to just make sure that it's a good enough size. I'm going to pick this up carefully, and I'm just going to stick the one end of the toothpick into the body slowly and carefully so that it doesn't come out the other side and that it stays in the middle. Just enough so that the head could be stuck onto this. And then you'll just place the head on. And then this allows the head to be upright and not fall to be on the bottom. So that's how that will work. And then so this is good for if you're making bigger spiders. For this smaller one, I'm probably not going to have to use a toothpick. But now I'm at the stage where I'm going to have the 4 legs on each side meet, and I'm just going to attach those so that we can then place our body on top. Okay, so then we'll take, again, 2 pieces of fondant out, one that's smaller for the head and one that's a little bit bigger for the body. And that's going to range depending on the size of your spider leg and the size of the surface you're going to put it on. So I'm just going to play around here and see how big the body should be for this little spider. So what I'm doing is I'm just forming kind of like an egg shape. And then I'm just going to lightly press down so that it looks like a fatter oval. And I'm just going to press that down to the middle, top of the legs. I mean, you don't even have to add a head really. They kind of just look like little mini spiders, even with the body. And then I just have this other really small little ball of black fondant, and I'm just going to attach that to the body. And then we have 2 spiders. Okay, so you guys can keep making spiders, or you can follow along to the next step for the buttercream. So for the buttercream, I'm just going to move these up here, let them dry. For the buttercream, we will need our mixer. Also just going to wipe my hands. Wipe down the surface a little bit. Okay, so we're going to need our butter, our buttercream icing mix, and the mixer. And you're going to see how fast and easy this buttercream comes together. So if you only want a small amount of buttercream, you can even use half of this. This is 2 pounds total. So if you only wanted to use 1 pound of the mix, you can even just cut it in half. If you want, you can just eyeball it because you are mixing it with butter. So it's okay if it's not perfectly in half. We are going to use the whole thing today. So all I'm going to do is also, each pail has the recipe on it. And this is our recommended recipe. And this recipe gives you more of like a perfect middle ground consistency that can work for filling, for coating, for piping. If you go to satinice.com/buttercream icing mix or buttercream mix, you will find a bunch of different recipes for different consistencies. If you add more butter, you can get a fluffier recipe. If you really whip it for longer and faster, you'll get more of a fluffier consistency. You can use milk instead of water if you want, or heavy cream. And the more water you use, the smoother the consistency will be, or the thinner it will be. And then obviously the less water you use, the stiffer it will be. So it's really whatever desired consistency you want and what project you're using it for. But this product is also gluten-free, dairy-free, nut-free, vegan, and it is kosher as well. And it's a vanilla flavor, like I said earlier. But in November, for my next class, we are going to be making this into a pumpkin spice buttercream. So definitely sign up for that if you're a pumpkin fan, because that's going to be delicious. Okay, so right now I'm just going to take the buttercream icing mix. And this is, like I said, this is more of like it's a dough base. So it's not powdered sugar. You're not going to have powdered sugar flying everywhere. It combines really, really nicely. So you can just put, it depends what mixer you're using. If you're using a stand mixer, it's a little bit more heavy duty than a hand mixer with a beater attachment. So if you wanted to, you could just break this up into like smaller pieces and put it in your bowl, or you can plop the whole thing right in. And then you can get rid of the bag. And if you are making the whole container, this will call for 8 tablespoons of butter, which is 1 stick. You can even do more butter if you want it to have more of a butter flavor or even a fluffier texture. I also recommend using the salted butter just because it gives it more like a nicer flavor, and it might tone down the sweetness a little bit. You could also use unsalted if you want, but today I am using salted. You can even swap the butter out for shortening if you want this to be vegan, because the buttercream icing mix on its own is vegan. So if you want to stick with that, you can use shortening or any other vegan style butter that you might have. So I'm just going to also just place this whole stick of butter in. And then we're going to start mixing it up. And then we will slowly add our water as these two ingredients start to come together. So I'm just going to first start it on like a low medium, and then we'll let it incorporate a little bit. And then we will start scraping the sides to make sure everything's evenly incorporated. Okay, so you can see that it's starting to come together. It is going to get whiter as this mixes. And then also I wanted to mention that it colors really well because it doesn't really have a yellow tint, because you're not using as much butter as you would if you were doing homemade buttercream. So that's another plus. So right now I'm just scraping the sides, and I want to make sure that I'm also getting the bottom, because we just want to make sure everything incorporates nice and evenly. And I'm using my spatula to do this. Okay. So I'm just going to, again, start mixing this just for another minute, and then we can start incorporating the water. The other great thing about this buttercream icing mix is that it's kind of foolproof. I mean, you don't have to, you're going to get the same batch every single time. You're not going to, the buttercream isn't going to break up on you, get too loose, or anything like that. It has a good stability with heat as well. So every time you make this batch, if you follow this recipe, you're going to get the same buttercream every single time. So that's a really great thing. So I'm going to mix this up for another minute, and then we'll start to add our water. Okay, so already this buttercream is pretty much done. We are going to add some of the water just to thin it out just a little bit and to get it to a good consistency. And like I said, if you want, you can use milk, you can use heavy cream. You don't have to add any flavoring to this, only if you want to. It already does have a vanilla flavor in it. You can also add like lemon extract, almond extract, really whatever flavoring that you like, because the vanilla flavoring that is in this isn't too powerful. Okay, so now we are just going to add our water. For the recommended recipe, it calls for 1 tablespoon. So we'll start with that and we'll see where we get. Okay, the buttercream is done. I only needed to add 1 tablespoon of water. Depends on your environment or what your project is, and you can always add more if you want. So now I'm just going to get some of this stuff off the paddle attachment. And also the beauty of it is that when you use the whole container, you can actually store your leftover buttercream inside of your container. So I am going to put some of the buttercream in here, and then you can either put some of the buttercream in a piping bag or we can spread it directly onto the cupcake. I'll show you both ways because we are going to want to have a smooth surface on our cupcakes. We're not going to be piping like a tall swirl or anything. We want to keep it nice, smooth, and flat. Okay, so right now I'm just cleaning up the buttercream and we'll get ready to smooth it out onto our cupcake. So I'm going to transfer some to the container to keep the extra. And then I will also put some into a piping bag. So when I put buttercream into a piping bag, you can do this 2 ways. I mean, you could, get this open first. You can either use a tall glass. I have water in this, so I can't use this, but you can put the piping bag in there and fold the sides over the glass. And then this way you can just stuff the piping bag with buttercream. Another way you could do it is you can roll down the sides of the piping bag and hold the bottom end of the piping bag and start rolling down the edges so that you hold it like this and you're kind of forming a cup to be able to put the buttercream in easily. So I'm just going to take some from my bowl. Like I said, you could do this 2 ways. You could put it in a piping bag if you want, or you don't even have to do that. I'll show you without putting it in the piping bag as well. Just going to put an extra into this container. Side. Okay. So if you don't want to use the piping bag to put the frosting on the cupcake, you could just take your angled spatula and just like you would frost any cupcake, you just put some on, gently smooth it out on top, This buttercream really whips up to a really nice and smooth, bright white buttercream. I love it. So what you want to do here is you just want to make sure that the surface is as smooth and flat as it can be, because we're going to use the glitter glaze to create a spider web on top. And also a tip to do that, to get the buttercream extra smooth, is to even when you're using this type of offset or angled spatula, if you put your hot water on in your sink and you run this under it, this is going to get warm. You wipe it dry, and then you just gently scrape over the surface of the buttercream and it will get it really smooth. So that's a nice little tip to get a really smooth surface. I don't have access to that right now, so mine probably won't look as perfect. Okay. So basically, we're going to do the same thing with the piping bag. You're going to have to smooth it out anyway. It's just so that maybe this can just help you get an even amount of buttercream on every cupcake. So I'm just cutting the tip of the piping bag off. And then I'm just going to make a swirl on top, a flat swirl with buttercream. And then I'm going to take the spatula and we're just going to spread this evenly and smooth. And this just allows you to make sure that you're pretty much getting the same even amount of buttercream on every cupcake when you use a piping bag. Okay, so you just want to make sure that your cupcake is flat and smooth. Okay, so next is all about the glitter glaze. Actually, I'm going to also show this on a cookie as well. So I'm just gonna pipe some of the buttercream onto my cookie and we'll smooth that out as well. This is gonna work great on cookies as well, since this is a nice flat surface. Okay, so now glitter glaze. Mine is already opened, but what you'll want to do is you're going to want to unscrew the top of the cap, and then there's going to be a food safety seal that you're just going to want to peel off. And then I like to give it like a little shake just to make sure everything is incorporated. And then I'll show you the first one onto the cookie, since that surface is a little larger. So all we're going to do is we're just going to make rings of the glitter glaze all the way just until we get to the outer edge of either your cookie, your cupcake, or the top of your cake. So first, in the middle, I'm just going to gently squeeze, and we're going to make a small little ring, the glitter glaze, just like that. And then we're going to go a little bit around it. We're just going to keep making rings all the way around until we get to the outer edge. The glitter glaze does not dry hard. The glitter glaze dries kind of like, once it's exposed to air for a little while, it will get more of like a film over it, but it won't dry hard. So you wouldn't be able to stack these cookies. And same with the buttercream. The buttercream will crust eventually, but it won't get hard like a royal icing. Excuse me. Okay. So now that I have all of the rings of the glitter glaze around, this is the fun part. You're going to take your toothpick and you're going to, I also have a paper towel here to make sure the toothpick stays clean. So you're going to start in the middle and you're just going to drag the toothpick through the glitter glaze, and that's going to end up creating the line for the spider web. So after each pass through, you're just going to want to make sure that you clean your toothpick so it stays nice and clean. And I think what I'm going to do is I started on the side and then I'm going to do one in the center going upright. And then one on the bottom. And then after each pass through, you're just going to wipe it clean. So I want mine to kind of be even. So I'm doing it in kind of like pie slices. So I'm going to go in between the first two. Lightly drag back. You can even do like a fun color for the buttercream as well. If you wanted to do it like purple or orange, that would be really festive and fun. Okay, so this is the spider web. And then I could do even more. I might go around another time. So this is a technique that's really fun and easy. It's not too scary. And you could do this on a lot of different desserts. You can even do this on top of brownies. And both of these flavors pair really nicely together because it's vanilla buttercream and the glitter glaze is vanilla as well. Okay, so I have this spider web done. And since this cookie is a bigger surface, I'm going to take my bigger spider. And really, if I was doing this, I would let this spider dry at least 12 hours overnight exposed to air, because that will make it firmer. And then you just gently pick it up and place it on the spider web. And it's so adorable. And like I said, you can even do different colored spiders as well. Okay, so now I'll show you guys how to do it. I apologize for coughing. I'm getting over a cold, so sorry that I'm coughing. So now we're going to do it on the cupcake, and we're going to do the same exact technique. So we're going to start in the middle. We're going to just lightly squeeze, and we're going to make a little ring in the middle. And then we're going to continue those rings all the way into the outer edge of the cupcake. We have a little space in between each ring. And then now this is the fun part where we use our toothpick to drag. You could do it the way I did it before, where I did like to the side, up and down, to the bottom, to the right, or you could just really go around and just make the spider web that way. Just remember to clean the toothpick after each pass through. Here's the other spider web. And then we can put our little baby spider on top. Carefully, because these aren't completely dry yet. So here's two examples. This is on a cupcake. And then this one's on a cookie. So both of these are a lot of fun. I mean, I'm sure you could even do this on a donut too, which would be really fun. And then you can even just leave some straight up as spider webs without the spider on it. So I'll do another one. So we're just going to do one ring in the middle. And then we're going to follow through with just ring after ring with a little space in between all the way until you reach the outer edge. Okay. Take our toothpick and we'll pass through all the way around the cupcake until the spider web forms. Okay, just like that. So this is a really, really fun technique to do for Halloween parties, to do with the kids, or to do even if you have a business to do for orders. Something that's really fun and easy. And you can get creative with it and do some bright colors. You could do like bright green fondant spiders, orange spiders, purple spiders, whatever you like, or even have fun with coloring the buttercream. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you all for joining me today. And I hope that you guys join my next class that's going to be in November. And that's going to also be using the buttercream icing mix. And we're going to make pumpkin spice buttercream using this. And we're going to decorate a cake that's perfect for Thanksgiving. So I hope you guys join me for that as well. And I hope you guys all have a great Halloween. And thank you again for joining. Have a great night.